I was punching air earlier today. So, we've got FanDuel as the official odds provider of the show, which means we can just get a number from them on any hypothetical game anytime we want. So some guy was running his mouth to us the other day saying, well, your JP poll's all wrong. Why was that, sir? Well, because you've got Clemson ahead of Missouri. Missouri would be at least a 7-point favorite over Clemson. This, of course, is insane. But you don't have to take my word for it anymore. So I go to FanDuel. I say, David, could you get me a number from the traders? He said, yeah, pick 'em. It would be a toss-up pick 'em game. That's the line we would put out, neutral field today. I take that information and I post it. And this guy comes back to me and says, agree to disagree. I don't even know what you do at that point. That's like saying it's going to rain. Then it rains, and the guy is staring up as the drops land in his eyes. And I agree to disagree, I don't know. Agree to disagree. We're jam-packed. We're high atop a temperate and very dry downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Thursday night, September 19th, the year of our Lord 2024, proudly presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I bring you tonight upset alerts because I'm moderately to severely panicked for some of these favorites this week because, again, the more casual-minded amongst us are telling you this is a down week. And that's when disaster strikes. I'm nervous, and I don't even have skin in the game necessarily. Billy Napier at Florida, nervous for his job security. And then secondarily, I'm nervous about a lot of the reports out there about how a job search would happen and how a coaching search would happen and who would be a candidate and how good is the Florida job. And there's a lot of haze in the room on that front. I've got some intel on where some teams were in the preseason in the odds market and the biggest moves that have happened. Like I mentioned already, I can just hit FanDuel up about this stuff at any given point, and they give us some really interesting tidbits on some of these teams. I'm going to share them with you because I don't keep it to myself. All that plus the lovable/contemptible Cole Cubelic will join us in about 30 minutes, but honestly, we'll keep him in the on-deck circle whenever we feel like bringing him in. They're watching us in Queen City, Texas, Miami, Florida, London, England, Mobile, Alabama, or the London of the Gulf Coast, as they call it. I have got 2 big-time meetups that are scheduled this weekend. Now, I told you that last weekend, and where did I end up, Colin and Jesse? I ended up in the mayor's office in Columbia, South Carolina, and then I got what is called a hydrofacial from Diana and the ladies at Pate. I cannot tell you, because it is very secretive, where I will be tomorrow evening before Friday Night Lines, but I will document it all on the socials. At Late Kick Josh, you need to be following over there on Instagram. Plus, I'll give you a lot of good behind-the-scenes content from a stadium I've never been to, and that will be Saturday night when we go to Tennessee and Oklahoma. But I got a couple of meetups, and I'll let you know when I can let you know. It's going to be fun. We have a lot of fun on the road. It's not going to be fun if your team loses as a double-digit favorite this weekend, but it's going to happen to someone. So we might as well start the show there. Upset alert meter for this week 4. Who's going down as like sometimes a single-digit favorite, maybe a double-digit favorite. We've got a couple of games here that we've already covered earlier in the week that have single-digit favorites that the entire world is on. Case in point, Tennessee. Like 147% of public money is on Tennessee at Oklahoma, and yet I've got a panic meter rating of 8 for the upset possibility. I know I'm in Tennessee right now. I'm in Nashville. I'm in Central Tennessee, and it's like sacrilege to even suggest that this is going to be a competitive game for some of the folks down on the streets of Nashville, Tennessee, but it could be. Here's how it could be. As we painted it the other night, there's a lot of firsts that happen in these games when you got first-year starters at quarterback, but I think that's been talked about a lot. Everyone knows. I'd say Nico Iamaleava is the most important player in this game. I don't think that's that controversial. Deion Burks was the big get out of the portal at wide receiver for Oklahoma. But they get Anderson back at wide receiver and Andrell Anthony back at wide receiver. So I've got 3 guys there that really haven't been on the field at the same time for Oklahoma. Now, it may just be more of the same. Offensive line may be inconsistent, therefore the passing game may be inconsistent because they can't run the ball consistently. It could be, or it could be that this is college football, and so you save a little up, and then you open some things up, but you also get some guys back, and you're really jacked up to play your first ever SEC game at home, and then you combine that with the fact that, yeah, we are going to throw some things at a young quarterback, ultra-talented, but a young quarterback that he's never seen before. I expect Nico Iamaleava to shine. Yeah, I do, but you don't know. You can't know. So how would all that coalesce into an upset? Well, it would shave possessions off for Tennessee, And you would probably find yourself at half. If you get the game script that you want for Oklahoma, you'd find yourself at half, and you'd be thinking things like, it doesn't feel like Tennessee's had the ball a whole lot. Now, Tennessee can flip that on its ear very quickly, so it's not like I'm certainly never going to discount a Josh Heupel offense. But if you were to invert it on them a little bit, that's how it would feel. I don't know. I think far too many people are going overboard in the relative selling and buying of stock in these teams based off of what we've seen earlier this season as it relates to this game. I am on record as saying I think it's going to be a very competitive game. An upset would not surprise me. It would stun and floor apparently a lot of other people. So I've got an 8. I have concerns for Tennessee. I've got an 8 on the upset alert scale. Next up, a game that I haven't told you guys this. I don't think it matters. Who cares? Whatever. It's Thursday. At this point, I can't get in trouble. Like all of management is going to this game. This is CBS 3:30 game of the week. So, I mean, you got Brad, you got Gary, you got Jenny on the call, but management's going to be up there. We got pregame shows up there, and your boy is sneaking off to Norman, Oklahoma. I think there are some people at the company that found out today I'm not going to be at this game. So if you see management, tell them we said, hey, let's be classy, let's be civil, let's have some decorum about ourselves. But what about the game on the field? USC is favored by 5.5 at FanDuel right now at Michigan. I picked Michigan to win the game. How many, I know we don't watch all the shows, Jesse. Have we seen anyone else pick Michigan outright? Are we aware of a very noteworthy prediction of Michigan money line? I haven't seen one, and I know good and well when I've seen all the USC hype videos, I'm the only one that they're looking to dunk on. Of course, those videos get deleted the moment you actually lose if you do, and none of those folks remember we picked USC to beat LSU in week 1. All of our equity has evaporated. I got a 9 on this one, obviously, because I think the outright upset is very much in play. This is another situation, just like Oklahoma, where I've got a very, very proud program who is foundationed in defense, kind of with a back against the wall mentality at home. And the line's under a touchdown, and all the energy publicly is USC, which I get. I get it. Totally get it. I buy into USC, actually. I also want you to know, not only do you have Deanton Lynn as the new defensive coordinator there, he gets an extra week. They're coming off a bye week. It's a 2-bye-week year, so USC had an early bye. Michigan did not. I'm not sure Michigan wanted a bye. But USC, now they do have to travel further than most of them have ever traveled before, for whatever that's worth, but it's coming off a bye week. If it's a matter of physicality, let's say if Michigan gets to turn it into that kind of game, well, then I don't really care about the rest so far, because a physical edge is a physical edge. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. But Alex Orji being quarterback now, starting quarterback for Michigan, as I said the other night, kind of removes, let me back up, it should remove a lot of the guesswork about what Michigan is. But here's the thing. This is a Kurt Campbell game, the offensive coordinator for Michigan. This is his game, kind of. I know Alex Orji is going to be the one on the field, but you've known what your situation is behind the scenes for a while up there. I'm not at practice every day, but you are, and you're the offensive coordinator at Michigan, so you better have a really good plan here. I'm banking on that. Like I may be called a fool afterwards, but I'm banking on them having a really good plan here. But Alex Orji has to give them enough in the pass game. Garrett Nussmeier had 6 completions of 15-plus yards against USC. So you should be able to find something. Doesn't have to be 350-plus through the air, but it needs to be something. I think that there is upset potential here. So I'm going to put a 9 on that. Now, this next one's a little more low profile, and there's a really, really weird fact about this one. Georgia Tech is at Louisville this Saturday. Louisville's favored by 10.5. Do you realize this is Georgia Tech's 5th game, and it's Louisville's 3rd game? Because if you played in week 0 and you're facing a team that's already had a bye, yes, that is possible. Georgia Tech, 5th game against a team that's played 3 here in Louisville. Played 2. This is their 3rd. I think Louisville's legit. I think that I like them a lot. I think I've got them in the top 15 in the JP poll. However, I can't know because they've played Austin Peay and they've played Jacksonville State. They've got a trip to Notre Dame on deck, kind of the game of the year for them. It shouldn't be a look-ahead spot because you're coming out of a bye that should negate that. But there is a lot that's still unknown technically about this team. Therefore, I'm putting a 6 on the upset alert scare meter here. I still think they'll find a way. Like, I like them to win and cover, but Georgia Tech is far more tested. They've gone to Ireland to beat Florida State. They've been on the road at Syracuse, lost a really, really close game up there. Haynes King is a 76% completion guy so far this year. That's 5th best in FBS. Georgia Tech, 180 rush yards per game. So Georgia Tech, more battle-tested. Maybe the tougher team. We'll see. I don't know how you quantify that necessarily, but we'll see about that. They are good and experienced at quarterback. They are really good just in general offensively. It's a good offense. It should scare me a lot more than it does. Not sure why. I've only got a 6 on this. I think Louisville coming out of a bye will look good, and I think they'll validate what we think about them. Fingers crossed, that's what we're hoping for. The next one I've already put money on. So Kansas State plays Brigham Young this Saturday. It's a Saturday game. I got a 9 for the upset alert scare meter because I think Brigham Young has a decent shot to win this game outright. They've got third. They're third in the country. Brigham Young's offense, third in the country in explosive play rate right now. Kansas State's pass D is 93rd in the country. It's an early season so far. So a lot of those stat profiles are warped. Therefore, 86th or 93rd or 102nd, whatever, they've struggled. Just put it that way. Tulane lit them up through the air. They've struggled. Kansas State, I watched the totality of their game last Friday night against Arizona, and if Avery Johnson is called on to have to throw to win a game, I don't trust it. Everyone, I think, has noticed how much Kansas misses Andy Kotelnicki at offensive coordinator since he went to Penn State. Don't forget, these folks lost Colin Klein to Texas A&M, and you may be seeing the beginning stages of the impact of that. So Kansas State's going to need to throw it to win, and I trust Brigham Young a little bit more in run D than I do Arizona last week because they could not stand up for 4 quarters against Kansas State. I think Brigham Young can. I think that there is serious upset potential here, so I'm putting a 9 on it. And then the last one kind of worries me that I'm not more worried about it. Miami is playing at USF. They're taking the tarps off the upper decks there in Tampa. And so Miami's laying 16.5 right now over at FanDuel. USF's strength, kind of Miami's strength defensively. So I don't necessarily trust this to be some track meet. I don't necessarily trust USF's offense to do a whole heck of a lot here. I wouldn't expect 30-plus if I were Alex Golesh and the Bulls. Therefore, how do I find a way to hold Miami under 24? Do I find a way to do that? I found a way to almost do it against Alabama, and then the final score was a little misleading as to how the first 3.5 quarters of the game had gone. Do I make it a full 4 here? Is it the same profile game as I played against Alabama? They, USF being they have forced 5 fumbles. Can you make Miami do that? That's not a stat category that I can predict. Can you make Miami do that? Or is there just some of the parts that at the end of the game has them in play and you're like, I'm not necessarily sure how they've done this? There is no real edge they have. Alex Golesh, man, he's just got him in play. 5 years from now, when Alex Golesh is a head coach at a major program, you'll look back on games like the one at Alabama 2 years in a row and say, man, remember when Golesh, who is a star now 5 years down the road, remember when he even did this stuff when he was at South Florida? And what I'm asking is, will this game be a part of the stories that you tell about when he was just at South Florida? I'm only putting a 3 on it because the model loves Miami this weekend, but I got a lot of respect for the staff over there at USF. So those are the upset alert games I'm looking at. I got 2 9s on the board there. Michigan and, USC's the favorite, and Kansas State the favorite. So Tennessee, I got an 8 on. We'll see. I mean, remember the first week, Jesse, we did this thing. Every single game we touched on, the dog either won outright or covered, and we should have tracked it since then. I haven't tracked it since then. Our friends at Academy Sports and Outdoors present this whole show. How about that? There's no strings attached. The only string is they would strongly suggest that you go visit their store, but you don't have to. But they strongly urge you to. I urge you to. And I don't really have to I don't really have to pull your arm all that much because it's a great place to go. And academy.com, if you can't get there in person. One of my favorite things that a lot of you hit me with is you're randomly driving down the road in your town that doesn't have an academy, and all of a sudden you got the sign that says Coming Soon Academy because they're opening up stores all the time. And I get pictures of that, and they're like thanking me. And I just pass it on to Alex and the folks over at Academy because contrary to popular belief, I do not possess the decision-making authority to open a new academy per se. However, I can make your voice heard and my voice parlayed with your voice. It's kind of the only parlay we do on the show. So Academy Sports and Outdoors, your tailgating essentials are there. It's Thursday night right now. Like a lot of you are going to spend Saturday in the shadow of a stadium. It's not too late. It's not. Don't be looking to the left and right and envying everyone else's. Just make yours the one that folks want to stop by. And trust me, I'm out in an ocean of tailgaters every week. We'll probably do this Saturday at Oklahoma, especially since it's a night game. I just meander out through the tailgating areas in the quad and wherever it's located. Not the corporate tailgates, mind you. I go out with our people. And there's Academy all over the place. It's like a magnet. It just draws me to those tailgates. And I'm not knocking you if you don't have Academy there. I'm just saying if folks do have Academy at their tailgate's a little bit better than yours. And I hate to be that way, but that's a fact. That's not even my opinion. That's a fact. So academy.com if you can't get there in person, or just straight up brick and mortar Academy if you can. All right, I have some interesting intel that I'm holding in my hand here. And I appreciate you guys being tuned in live, by the way. We are well on our way to 300,000 subscribers on the channel. Now, I don't know what's going to happen when we get there. We still got a couple of weeks, probably. Let's go ahead and start workshopping some ideas. Because when we got to 200K, we celebrated pretty fervently around here. So what do we want to do when we get to 300K? Let's be thinking on that. Which programs have seen the biggest jump in the odds market since the beginning of the season? I hit up FanDuel. I said, I want to do something interesting on Thursday. I want to talk about where you guys had these teams in the preseason, and then based on 4 weeks worth of data, which ones have you moved numbers on the most? And they said, paper pop it. Let's go. Miami is the biggest mover. This is not a shock. None of these will be a shock to you necessarily, but I just want you to think about what the talk was with Miami. So we bet them to win the ACC, and I bookmarked a lot of comments of folks hating on us, and I go back and look, and they've been deleted. Also, not a shock. They were plus 380 to win the ACC. So they had the third best odds to win the ACC in the preseason. FanDuel now has them with the number one best odds, plus 125 overall to win the ACC. To make the playoff, though, that's the real big move. They were plus 210 to make the playoff, and now they are minus 230. I don't know if you want to phrase it like this, but they are extremely favored, the Miami Hurricanes, to make the playoff. Are we ready for that world? The answer for some of you is a hard no. And you know what? Miami's not the only one. A lot of you aren't ready for Tennessee to be elite either. You think you are. A lot of you are going to pull for Tennessee this weekend. And you don't get what Tennessee's like when they're elite because you weren't born the last time Tennessee was elite. Get ready to learn Rocky Top, buddy. Get ready to learn Rocky Top. So anyway, back to Miami. To win the whole thing, they were plus 5,000 to begin the season. They are plus 1,800 now. Because here's a funny thing that happens. When sharp money or square money alike sees elite quarterback play, really, really high-level line of scrimmage play, and a couple of really good recruiting classes stacked on top of each other, complemented with someone having nailed it in the portal like Mario and Miami did, they understand it doesn't really matter how long I've dunked on Miami because this is not that Miami. This is windshield Miami. That was rear view window Miami. I don't think they're going back to rear view window Miami for quite a while. For some reason, this was so hard for people to grasp. Jesse, we probably did half a dozen of these segments in the preseason, and we were called carrying water for them. We were running PR for them. No, we just had common sense. We knew what we were looking at. Next up, USC. Yes, the USC Trojans are here. Big game 2 days from now at Michigan. That win over LSU triggered a ton of public movement on USC, as it should. So to win the Big Ten, they had the fifth best odds to win the Big Ten. Now they have the fourth best odds, but the number has moved drastically. It's gone from plus 5,000 to plus 3,000. To make the playoff, though, that's the big move. Plus 470 to plus 140. And so, again, it's going to be a little different because the overwhelming favorite to win the Big Ten is going to be Ohio State. And it will be until proven otherwise. And so you may not have good odds movement on that front, but to make the playoff, you don't have to beat Ohio State. To make the playoff, you don't have to win your conference. And so, to lock down an 8 or a 9 or a 10 seed, yeah, USC's got a really good shot at that right now. To win the whole thing, plus 10,000 odds down to plus 2,800. So, folks, again, if you see high-level quarterback play, if you look at Miller Moss, game 1, and you look at USC's defense, and those may be your 2 biggest question marks, and they get answered in the affirmative emphatically against LSU in week 1, yeah, it stands to reason. You're going to have a lot of movement. Now, I happen to think, in retrospect, having looked at the LSU game now through the prism of what LSU has been since then, this weekend's probably the one that you'll learn more about USC from. I didn't think I'd be saying that, but I think that's reality. It's one thing to beat LSU neutral site week 1 in Vegas. It's another thing to be in the Big Ten and go on the road in the building of the team that won the national title last year and plant your flag there. That would be, I think, if the dust settles and they do that Saturday, that would be the real needle mover for a lot of folks. That would be the one also, if you're a USC fan, I think you remember more fondly for a lot longer. Next up, team I'll see in person for the first time this year, Saturday night. Next biggest mover, actually, is Tennessee, right behind Miami. They're the next biggest mover in the FanDuel odds market. They don't have a major win, though. I don't call the NC State game a major win, all due respect. So you can say Miami doesn't either, because I don't think many of you think very highly of Florida right now. So on one hand, it's interesting. Should the number have moved like this? But then on the other hand, that question's irrelevant. It is an odds market. It is based on real dollars and cents having been moved. So, of course, there is no woulda, shoulda, coulda. If the money is suggesting it has to happen, it's going to happen. So to win the SEC, it's a really significant move. Tennessee was plus 1,600. They are plus 900 now. That is a really, really big jump because, remember, it is a crowded field. Plus 900, you look at that and you say, well, that's still pretty long odds, right? It is not long odds because there's no overwhelming favorite to win this thing because you've got Texas and Georgia and Alabama and Missouri and Ole Miss, and you're part of that mix. It's kind of like the Big 12, just with much better teams, top to bottom, the better quality of team. To make the playoff, it looks just like Miami, actually. It went from plus 198 in the preseason, already not bad odds, to minus 205. So Tennessee, also over a 2-1 favorite to make the playoff right now, just like Miami, over a 2-1 favorite to make the playoff. That doesn't mean you win anything, just make the playoff. And Tennessee also to win the whole thing from plus 3,500 down to plus 1,400, and they also have a big test Saturday night, and I also think that one's the needle mover. Now, it's not hard for me to sell you on the fact that that would move the needle a lot more than NC State. I think it's a tougher sell that beating Michigan's a bigger deal than beating LSU was for USC, but I believe what I believe here. Also, I think some of the feedback we've gotten is from an offensive standpoint. If you look at Tennessee, it's a lot like you took the best parts of the 2022 team, number 1 passing offense in the country, and then last year they had to run the ball because it was Joe Milton season, and you kind of blended those two. Not that they didn't run the ball in 2022. Heupel would hack the show and take us off the air if we suggested that, but it's a really, really good offense, really good. Sky's the limit for them. Except that they could get upset Saturday night. But otherwise, sky's the limit for them. They have the 5th best odds to win the SEC right now. You see what I was talking about there. Nebraska, let's just a ceremonial paper pop there for the Huskers. It was one of our favorite win totals in the preseason. The over-under win total was 7.5. I know that it's week 4. They're going to win more than 7.5 games. The Big Ten odds are still long. So it was plus 5,000. Now it's plus 3,000. That's because Nebraska's not going to win the Big Ten. Like, no one looks at Nebraska, even with them maximizing their potential this year, and thinks that team will beat Ohio State in Indy or Oregon in Indy or USC or whoever's there. That's not the thinking there. The thinking is, well, what if they make the playoff? That's where you're starting to see a little movement. They were plus 1,000 to make the playoff. Now they're plus 700. And their schedule, honestly, I still think that number is a little long because their schedule sets up very favorably. I think a lot of that being plus 700 has to do with the coming on of USC. They've got a ranked team tomorrow night. They are the Friday night game, number 22 versus number 24. And Illinois comes to town. We already broke that game down, but they go to Ohio State the week of Halloween, and then they go to USC a couple of weeks after that. And they go to Iowa. I don't want to overlook that. They go to Iowa to end the season. So it gets rough. There are some very stiff opponents back there, but you got to ask, what does a 10-2 Nebraska look like in the playoff committee's eyes? And before you answer that, you can't assume anything because you don't know what the rest of the world looks like. If you got a bunch of 11-1s, okay, that's one thing. But what if it's just a total mess at the end of the year? Like, I still think there's a little value on betting that. Yes, we're sitting here saying that about a team that hasn't sniffed it in forever. Yes, we're saying that about a true freshman starting at quarterback. Is it irresponsible? Of course it is. Is this a responsible show? Most of the time, no. No, it is not. So that's some good intel, I think. Now, when we do this again in 3 weeks, then we'll have a lot more chaos and carnage on our hands, and then that'll be really fun. We're going to Oklahoma. I'm flying out there tomorrow. I've got a couple of really, really fun meetups set. And none of them are gas station related, mind you. That was a lot of your guesses today were I was going to flip on Quick Trip. No, that's not happening. And secondly, I can't tell you what I'm going out there for. I'm going out there for a football game Saturday night, fueled by Quick Trip, the whole new Saturday tour headed to Norman. But I have also promised you many other things. This is not just Quick Trip pays for us to go on the road every week. Quick Trip has vowed, what? To give a whole bunch of free gas away through this show. All right, so Colin, show me the first tweet from Jake. I just want to give you an idea of the feedback I get around here. So Jake hit me up, and unfortunately, I overlooked this. This happened on September 8th, and I told you guys, if you're suffering through fall weddings, document it. I may give you some free gas just to make up for what you're having to go through. Jake hit me and said, I had a Saturday fall wedding yesterday. I would love if Quick Trip could fill my tank up to get home. Go Dogs. Okay, so yes, I feel bad about this as soon as I open up the DM. Actually, Jake doesn't even know I saw this because I left it unread, but now he knows. Jake's mom listens to the show and noticed that I did not point this out, and so he screenshot, which is the past tense of screenshot, her text message to him. And Mom hit Jake and said, I think it's time to call Josh Pate out. P-A-I-D, Pate out. He just made this big plug on, I guess it was Monday or Tuesday show, about giving out tons of free gas, and all you had to do is send in your expletive picture. You need to call him out to say, hey, Josh Pate, second time, where is my free gas? 2 weeks in a row. It's right here, Mom of Jake. We will call her Maj for short. It's right here. So say no more. I'm a man of my word. They are a gas station of their word. Just say no to fall weddings. They are the devil. But the one thing we can do is deliver you a free tank of gas to make up for it. So to Jake and to Mom, thank you for your persistence. Next up, before we get Cubelic in here, Jesse, let's do something because I don't want to keep him waiting. Let's save Arch in Texas, because I have a feeling we're going to be able to talk about that next week. Let's talk about Napier for a second. By the way, they're watching us in Ocean City, Maryland, West Palm Beach, Florida, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. I can't roll the R. If I can't say Brigham Young the right way, BYU, there's no shot on Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. Humiliating. Colin, we got this tweet from Napier, or about Napier. Billy Napier has not tweeted the show. Paul from Naples, Florida said, in this era of portal and NIL, how should Florida go about firing Napier if that's what they do? If they do it now, they could lose everyone and their recruiting. Is there a right way to do it? No, there's not a right way to do it. So I sort of laughed when folks started circulating these rumors about a board meeting Saturday or Sunday last week, which was never going to happen. There was a lot of booster activity and conversation behind the scenes. I've spoken to some of them, and I'll tell you what the feedback they got was from the market, and that is, why are you even considering firing him right now? What point, what sense does that make? Who's your slam dunk interim coach, by the way? There isn't one. And you also don't really know what the market's going to yield quite yet, because frankly, there's some candidates out there that need to be sold a little bit more on the quality of the Florida job. Not in classical terms. I've said what I think about the Florida job, and I mean what I say about how good the Florida job can be, but a lot of the mechanisms behind the scenes, the NIL most notably, maybe some guys have to be sold on that. But that's only part one of this thing. Part two of this thing is, makes no sense to get rid of him now because you've got a recruiting class that you've got to hold together. But the thing about it is, it doesn't matter when you do it. It's going to be ugly because you're probably targeting a guy whose team is going to be playoff caliber. And as was pointed out very colorfully by our buddy Tyler Siskey the other day, and this is the talk behind the scenes right now amongst pretty much everyone, the calendar screws you, totally screws you. So to give you an idea of what we're talking about, let's say you target Kiffin, which I absolutely think they'll do. If you target Lane Kiffin's going to have Ole Miss in the playoff if he doesn't have them in the SEC title game and the playoff. So your early signing day is the Wednesday, the first Wednesday in December. That's changed this year. The calendar, they threw it in the garbage, they redefined it, and so your early signing day, what you're trying to hold a recruiting class together until, that's the first Wednesday in December. You're not going to have your coach in place by then, so poof, that's out the window. Then the portal opens the 7th or 8th or whatever of December through the first week or so of January, and the first round of the playoffs is the 20th and 21st of December. The second round's New Year's, and then you've got your semis happening, and certainly your title game happening after the portal's already closed. And the question is, even if you could get a Lane Kiffin, even if he does covet the Florida job, is he leaving Ole Miss in the middle of the playoff? Well, of course he's not. No one's doing that. Can you operate like Kirby did once upon a time, where he announces, I'm going to be the Georgia coach, but I'm going to stay at Alabama through the title game? No, because he was a coordinator. He wasn't the head coach. Kiffin's the head coach. And so the question becomes, are you willing to wait that long? I don't know what their answer will be. I don't know what anyone's answer is going to be because we haven't really seen this happen. But the second thing that I've suggested, because I've talked to a couple of folks in that world about this, not at Florida, not at Ole Miss or anything like that, but just in that world in general, I've said the answer here is you've got to get as aggressive and creative as anyone's ever gotten with building a bridge. And I'm not talking about your traditional let's name an interim head coach and just hope he holds the ship steady until the new guy gets here. No, I'm talking about, and this is hypothetical, purely hypothetical, and purely as an example, being aggressive would be like going and saying to Urban Meyer, oh, you say the ship has sailed. Of course, we're not going to try and hire you to be the new head coach. What we do need is a guy to lead this thing for about 60 days that can extol the virtues of Florida, that can hold a recruiting class together, that can get us to January, whenever it's going to be, when our new guy gets here, and that can make sure he can look guys in the eye and say, if you can just hold on for me, this is Florida, it's a special place, I should know I've won titles here, just hold on, just let me see it through the smog, and when it clears up, it's going to make sense, you're going to want to be here. You got to get aggressive, and whether it's Urban Meyer or someone else, you got to find someone who can do that. Because otherwise, you can't go after a guy who's in the playoffs. That's the long and short of that. So no, there's no right way to do it. College football's calendar will not allow you to have a right way to do this. Lastly, before we get to Cubelic, I've got... We what now, Jesse? Oh, okay. Well, in the meantime, I've got a couple of best bets to add. That was Jesse telling me that Cubelic's missing. I'll just break that news. Cubelic's missing. I don't know what we want to do about that. But in the meantime, a couple of things that you need to know about, and then also I got a couple of best bets I'm going to add here. So our friends over at FanDuel, the Profit Boost tokens, the old PBTs, they're in play this week. Tennessee, Oklahoma, Profit Boost there. You bet on that one and you win, 100% matching bonus. USC, Michigan, 50% matching bonus. Those are big games, like everyone's going to be betting those, so I just wanted you to know that if you're doing it over at FanDuel, they have a Profit Boost for you in play. New users, that same deal applies for Bet5. Get 200 back, whether you win or lose. It's like the best deal known to mankind, because that is one of the few moments of guaranteed money you'll ever have in your life. Okay, so a couple of games I already moved on for the Ramen Noodle Express. Brigham Young plus 7.5. We bet BYU every week so far. Brigham Young plus 7.5. They are playing Kansas State at home. We took Baylor plus 1.5. They are on the road at Colorado. 2 more games that I'm going to add here. Michigan State is playing Boston College. Michigan State plus 6.5 against BC. And then I love the profile of the Arkansas-Auburn game. No side here. I'm taking the over at 56.5. That number is sitting right there at FanDuel right now. We want Arkansas-Auburn over 56.5. So, we got him? We got him. All right. I had an entire soliloquy on Arch Manning I was about to go on. But we have Cubelic. He has finished dinner, and he's wandered over and paid the internet. So he's with us. How are you? What were you doing, by the way, before you joined us?
We had a couple friends over. We did go to dinner, and then they came to the house, and the kids were going bananas in the backyard. They just came inside. You'll probably hear them shortly.
Yeah, okay, cool. You got friends. That's great.
How are you? Have you been grinding on the tape? Is that what you've been up to?
Yeah. No thanks to some people. Yeah, I've been grinding on the tape. I need to tell you, by the way.
Film access. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, most of what I'm talking about to you has to be told off air, but I do have a story for you, so remind me of that later tonight. I do want to ask you something that one of my friends asked me. Because he was you were at Tennessee last week, so he's a Tennessee fan. So he said, I saw Cubelic, I was in the upper deck, I couldn't talk to him, but he talked to a lot of people, which flies in the face of conventional wisdom, and that is that you're really reclusive and antisocial. What do you say to people? What is the interaction when you're down there on the field with you got 2 ear? You use 2 ear or 1 ear?
It depends. I go back and forth. So if I know I'm communicating with Tom Jordan or my producer and I need to hear what they're saying, I always have one in and the other one's in and out. If I'm trying to hear what's happening on the sideline or talking to somebody down there, I'll take one out and then try to conversate that way. So it depends. Usually one's out most of the time. Oftentimes I'm asking people for a bite of their soft pretzel, or if they will go to the concession stand and get me a soft pretzel or maybe a Coke Zero if we don't have any on the sideline, because our snacks are adequate, but usually stadiums have better snacks. And then also people are usually asking me my opinion on other games, not the game that we're watching. And so we'll have conversations about that. And I had at least 4 people in Knoxville yell at me from the stands, hey, I love your show you do with Pate. And after once or twice, it was cool. And then I started responding, don't put my name on that. That's not my show.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to go on it, but just leave my name out of it.
Yeah, you do have a show with your name on it. And that's news to some, but yeah, you do have a show with your name on it. So I'm walking around the park in Nashville earlier today, using earbuds for the first time on a phone call with you. And we were talking about how many Tier 1 teams there actually are in college football right now.
Just say AirPods.
Whatever. I don't believe in those
things,
things, man.
They're going to think you're talking about a movie with a dog playing basketball. That's what they're going to think you're talking about.
Speaking of which, I had earwax that had clogged up mine. Okay, I can hear you really good now. So I'm going to read these teams off that are atop the JP poll right now. You just yes or no, are these current Tier 1 teams to you? Is Texas a Tier 1 team?
Yes.
All right, I agree. Georgia?
Yes.
Okay. Ohio State?
Was there a delay?
There's not a delay. I just wonder, if I put Georgia's performance in Arkansas uniforms, would you still think that?
You're not one of those people. You're smarter than that.
No.
You're smarter than that.
No, I'm not. No, I've got about 14 or 15 minutes I want to fill with that.
One performance does not define a team.
That's true.
And when you have multiple players out on one of the strong points of your team, be it the front 7 and 2-3 different players that you would have leaned on, relied upon, and still, by the way, that's probably the group that won you the football game, shows me the strength of that team overall. And quarterbacks are going to have off days. Offenses are going to have off days. Defenses are going to have off days. It's okay. Not everybody's going to be on cruise control and win by 60 on their way to the championship. Also, we tried to warn people about a couple of defensive lines before the season. South Carolina was one. Kentucky was one. Tennessee was one. And nobody wanted to hear it at media days. And they said, how can you not have Alabama number 1 defensive line? Or Georgia's got to be the number 1 defensive line. It's just not the way that it works all the time. Those teams have older, veteran defensive linemen that they can rotate in. That whole Kentucky secondary, they're like seniors and 5th-year seniors and graduates. So Brad White does a great job defensively. I didn't think that Carson Beck had his best day by any stretch of the imagination. Also, a dude that used to be playing on that defense is now playing defense for Kentucky. That probably played into it just a little bit. So yeah, they had a little bit of an off day. I'm not going to all of a sudden say Georgia's not a really good football team anymore. They won the game. I thought that's what we were supposed to do the last time I checked.
I agree. Georgia's tier 1. I just wanted you to disagree. Ohio State, you said yes?
Yes.
Is Alabama?
Yes.
Is Tennessee?
Very close, if not yes.
Is Ole Miss?
The only reason is NC State, I have real concerns about actually where they are. But listen, they handle their business against them. But I think based on just performance, yeah, you probably got to put them there.
Is Oregon?
No.
Is Ole Miss? Careful.
We could say the same thing about opponents, but the only thing that I see from Ole Miss that would tell me not to put that team with those other teams is the way that their offensive line has played so far. It has been disappointing, especially with two guys from last year's Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line. They have not played well this year. Jackson Dart took way too many hits against Wake. But quarterback, receiver, tight end, running back, I don't remember Henry Pierce being that good last time he was there, or at Miami either. Like, he looked totally different last week. And then the defensive line, the front seven, when you add in Chris Paul with some of those defensive linemen, all of a sudden, Josh, you're watching them on film and you're like, holy hell, that's an SEC front seven. Where's that been? And it's like Pete Golding told us a long time ago, like, we want to get thicker and longer all across our defense. And now Ole Miss has been able to do that.
Which is exactly what Miami did as well. So is Miami a tier 1 team?
Yes. Can be dominant in the trenches, have a takeover quarterback, takeover defensive lineman, really good skill. Yes, Miami's there.
I guess y'all don't talk about Miami as much as maybe some of the SEC teams. When you talk about them, like, I agree with you. I think they're right up there. What's the most common bit of pushback you get on that has to do with this year's Miami team instead of something in the last 20 years?
You know college football fans as well as I do, and it has nothing to do with this year. It has to do with recent memory, years plural. But the main thing, I believe, Josh, would be in-game coaching. There are certain people that just don't believe Mario is ready for that stage or is going to continue to have his team prepared to be on that stage or handle all the things that come his way on that stage. I don't necessarily believe that. Has he made some mistakes as a coach along the way? Sure. Most of them have. Greg made a great comp when the last time it came up and talked about Kirby in the SEC championship game. Like, nobody really points back to that and says the guy's not a good coach anymore. But we got writers in the state of Alabama that'll tell you if you score more in the first half than the second half, you can't be a good football coach. So oftentimes we don't know what the hell we're doing.
I know where you're going with that. So Notre Dame, you would say no. Clemson, I assume you would say no. I'm just
Notre
going
Dame?
down the list. I'm just going down the list. I have to make sure. You can be controversial. You're legendary for doing that stuff in Huntsville radio. They still talk about it there.
Only if my guests were being paid to appear.
Yeah.
I can't put Clemson there right now. Dominant defensive line, good skill, offensive line better than I expected, but still have some quarterback concerns as far as being an elite tier 1 football team. Can't go there just yet.
Okay.
Notre Dame is an absolutely not.
Yes, sure. What about USC?
Might be, can be, could be. I mean, only 2 games. So, but look good in certain facets against LSU. I saw a couple of things I didn't really like against Utah State. Some things defensively, kind of the old habits still showed up a little bit. But they feel like they're different in the trenches. They feel physically like the attitude, the behavior, that it's changed a little bit. And I also think we forget how long Miller Moss has been around. Not that just automatically makes you a good quarterback, but like, we've got Ole Miss Georgia Southern this weekend. We met with Coach Helton today, and we were asking him about what he remembered about Jackson Dart. And he said, yeah, he's like, if you remember, Miller was there and Jackson didn't care. He signed anyway. And I'm sitting there like doing the math in my head, like, oh, how long have these guys been in college now? So I think he might be that next guy in a Lincoln Riley offense that can go out there and put up massive numbers. Top to bottom, I don't know if I'm ready to say tier 1 just yet.
Yeah. All right. We got a big game in Auburn this Saturday. I assume you guys have spoken about this all week on the radio. All right, so I'll tee it up here because we really haven't talked about it much this week somehow.
Okay.
Arkansas at Auburn, Saturday, 3:30, 2:30 game there on ESPN. My first thing that I think about when I go back to that Arkansas game, I think everyone's got burned in their memories the meltdown for Arkansas at Oklahoma State. But yet, if you look like first three games, they've rushed for at least 230 all three of those games. And so I think about like coming into this one, the way it profiles, I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. First off, like I took the over at 56.5. So the first thing I wonder is, would Arkansas be able to go in there? I think both of them candidly feel like it's sort of a do or die moment for them in terms of preseason goal setting and whatnot. Can they go in there and not have to ask Taylor Green to win the game with his arm? Because he can be very hit or miss, boom or bust on that front. Do they start peeling it off like 6 yards per carry? Is that the kind of game that starts to set up? Because if it does, you know, you weren't there, but you know all too well the uneasiness in your gut that started to set in when you watched Cal start doing what they were doing. And if Arkansas starts doing that as well and they're able to put four quarters together, I feel like it's evenly matched in a lot of ways. That could be one of the edges, I guess. What's one of the things you're looking at?
I think the main reason that you would go lean to what you said about not necessarily wanting Taylor Green to have to go out there, throw it, say, 44 times and go win the game on his shoulders, on his back with his arm, is that he's thrown 2 interceptions. He's fumbled it 3 times this year. So he will give you the football. I don't want him to have that many opportunities to give my opponent the football in their stadium, which just happens to be one of the toughest places to play in the nation. Also, I have an absolute hammer at tailback in Jaquindon Jackson, who can get downhill about as well as any back I've seen this year. Now, the offensive line might not be dominant, but I also don't think the Auburn front seven is dominant by any stretch of the imagination. Josh, I think any coach would love to be able to go on the road in that type of environment and dominate or at least be very successful on the ground, just because of what it does to everything, calming the crowd down, slowing the game down. I mean, you want to shut up a crowd in a stadium, go on a 13-play drive for about 6.5 minutes with, 10 run plays, 11 run plays. They're not going to have a lot to cheer about for a while. So I think Sam Pittman and company would love to do that. Bobby Petrino would love to do it. And then you use Taylor Green's legs when you want to, not when you have to. So you boot him out, you call a quarterback run, you have a sprint out at your luxury, as opposed to when you feel like this is the only way we're going to be successful. So I know for a fact that Arkansas wants to lean on Jackson, and I know he's a hammer. So if they can get that going, I don't think there's any reason they'd get away from it and would probably enjoy doing it for 4 quarters.
Yeah, the other thing, as turnover prone as he may be over there on Arkansas, you realize Auburn's had 2+ turnovers in 5 straight games, dating back to last year even. So I'm going to sit here and watch Hank Brown start at quarterback. Had a fairly good day, especially second half against New Mexico. I am watching that, and I'm watching them this Saturday. And everyone will say, oh, it's important to get off to a fast start, which is true. And, oh, it's important. Don't let Arkansas start tilting those critical factors, plays run, time of possession. Don't let that be all warped in the first half, even if all that goes Auburn's way. Watching Auburn football right now, I have this like dread in the back of my head of any given play, which is, of course, not forecastable. But when you've done it a couple of times, at least 5 straight games, that kind of becomes part of who you are as a team. And so at the very least, it is disconcerting from a predictability standpoint. But Hank Brown hitting big plays should be able to happen here. I don't know. What's the latest on Coleman, by the way? Is he playing Saturday?
Questionable. I think he'll go. Yeah. But we'll see.
It should be there. There should be plays to be made back there. But the thing about it is if I mix a couple of 3 turnovers in there along with that, it really is irrelevant. That's the difference in the game. And I don't necessarily know how we quantify that, but that's another thing that I'm looking at here.
Well, I think the other part is one of Arkansas's best DBs is going to be out. That should give you some opportunities down the field. The one thing that I think could go furthest in making Hank Brown the better option is not turning the football over, because he's not going to be overly dynamic in any other way. He doesn't have the mobility Peyton Thorne has, doesn't have a huge arm, honestly doesn't really get the ball out very quick. There were a couple of throws on the perimeter, some out routes, hitch routes that I was thinking to myself, man, that ball just looks late. And next week, the week after, and then the week after that, that could be a problem. But he's accurate. And apparently the decision-making and the understanding of the offense and the operation of it are something that he has had some advantages with and done a little bit better job of. All of those things have to happen for him. And that's the one thing that I don't know in this game, Josh. I don't know what Auburn offense we're going to get, because a lot of it had morphed into utilizing Peyton Thorne's legs. So you could freeze the backside of the defense because of his ability to keep the ball and run. You don't have that anymore. New Mexico was screaming flat down the line of scrimmage on the backside of run plays, almost making those plays a couple times. I would imagine Landon Jackson and company will probably be able to make those plays. So you're going to have to screen them there. You're going to have to sneak a draw in every now and then. You're going to have to boot to that side. You might have to crack to that side a little bit. So the game plan does have to alter to hopefully be able to open some things up for Jarquez Hunter, because I still think he has to be the guy that you ride, no matter what. Right now, he's the most proven football player on your team. And 20 carries last week felt like 120 carries because he just hadn't been getting that kind of a workload. He's got to get it if Auburn's going to win this football game.
Yeah, another question. We'll get to the pick here. There's such a – you see this all the time. You're on the road every week. There's such a disparity for teams that are struggling, but like they're big venue teams. If they start hot, home field's an advantage the entire afternoon. It disproportionately affects the game. If they do not start fast, just like Florida week 1 against Miami, they don't start fast, home field non-existent. Like you're standing mid-second quarter on the sideline in the swamp, and Miami's doing whatever they want to. And I think that could be the case here, because we've seen games in the past where Auburn's not putting up a record necessarily that's anything to write home about, but good start. A lot of stuff comes together. I think about the interim situation a couple of years ago, which may have been against Arkansas. Was it against Arkansas? I can't remember who that was against.
Carnell?
Yeah.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, where place is on fire. So that place possesses the ability to do that. You got to start fast or prevent them from doing it. Okay, where are you going on this game?
I think it's more important. Sorry to interrupt you. It's more important to prevent them from starting fast, because Arkansas has big play capability. Taylor Green, 10 runs of 10 yards or more, 4 runs of 20 yards or more. So he can do it by himself. Armstrong's been hitting plays down the field. We've already mentioned at tailback what they have. If you allow them to start fast and then they can add some of those explosives later, which are just more demoralizing when you're down or it looks like you might be down soon or might not have the best chance to win, that could be problematic. And then with a little bit of a younger team too, I think you need that motivation early.
All right, where are you going on this game?
I think Auburn finds a way to get it done. I think that Taylor Green, having show you he'll give it back, with Jalen McLeod and a couple of edge defenders that out in space have been pretty good. Are against 320-pound tackles, down in, down out, maybe not. But I think where they lined up last week shows you that they have some versatility and they can be in different places. I think he'll try to get out of the pocket a few times, and an Auburn defender or two will make a play. Still have a couple of veterans that haven't been playing great football on the back end, but I think have a chance to step up and make some plays in this game. And then I think Hank Brown protects the ball. I'd probably take the under if I were you, but I'm going to go Auburn somewhere in the neighborhood of like 24-21, lower scoring game than we think.
All right, so I'm promptly telling you I'm taking the over because I think there will be a little more scoring here. I think Arkansas is going to find a way to win this. Don't have a ton of confidence on the side. I do think Arkansas is find a way to win this. I don't think the game is going to have to be put in Green's hands, per se, to throw the ball late. He'll make enough plays. Back and forth either way. I think it's played in the 30s instead of the 20s, so I am going to take Arkansas to win this one. Do you have anything else that you want to say before we depart on this Thursday evening?
No, I just feel like you made a very accurate statement about home crowd advantage. It reminded me, I think, yesterday or the day before was the anniversary of the cigar game there in Baton Rouge when we rolled into town for, I think it was a weird like 4:30 kick on ESPN. Ronnie Daniels goes crazy. 47-7, 49-7, I think was the final score. And I have never seen Tiger Stadium a quarter full at halftime up until that game. But you're right. You can jump on somebody early and you can shut that crowd up.
Colin, do we randomly have that video of Michigan Stadium I sent you like last week, by the way? We probably don't have that because I didn't tell you to cue it up. I think one of the wildest scenes is when you've been in a 100,000+ seat venue for 4 hours. People have been at full throat. And then it empties out, and I'll be there doing post-game hits on CBS. The most unmistakable sound, especially in the big bowls like the Cotton Bowl or Michigan Stadium, is what the wind does to the trash in the stands and how loud the sound of the cups are that are blowing down the stairs, because it is such a different vibe than what it sounded like just an hour earlier. It's one of the most like vivid memory frameworks I have of being on the road every year. Like if I'm randomly in spring thinking about the fall, this is how weird my mind works. One of the first things I'll think about is, boy, I can't wait for that trash. I love that sound. I love the sound of
God,
trash
I love
in the fall.
trash.
Yeah. There it is.
Here it
Just
is.
listen. Just listen to it.
You can hear the little chain things on the flagpoles rattling.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one too that you always know. We could always hear that when we went to the stadium for scrimmages and nobody was in there, so that brings back that memory. I thought you were going to go with when it gets close to the end of the game and it's 70-80% empty because the team's getting blown out. How much more of the actual football you can hear?
Oh yeah.
Whether guys talking to each other or the pads hitting each other, it's all of a sudden it's just the volume of the game is completely different when you get to that situation.
All right, Cole Cubelic, you're off to Oxford. Say hello to your squirrel that you own over there. Say hello to the staff, and we will see you back next week, my friend.
Can't wait.
All right, and we will see you Sunday night. We're going to be out of here tomorrow afternoon. Friday night lines will emanate from Norman. Got us a hotel in Norman instead of nearby Oklahoma City. Got a meeting that I'll be taking before we do that. So just make sure you're following over on Instagram at LateKickJosh. Until Sunday night, for Director Colin, for Producer Jesse, I'm Josh Pate. Take care. We'll see you right back here same time. Everyone, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the football, and God bless.